Hello, everyone. Welcome back to Gary Gomes Vedic Astrologer for Hire. Um, I'm here on this is November 6th, 2021. 221 is 5, a year of change. And I'm going to be talking a little bit about number one, why I'm wearing black today. It is black, not a very, very dark blue. And also, I'll be talking about planetary maturity, why it's an important concept in Vedic astrology. But also, I want to mention that tomorrow morning at 9 o'clock Eastern Time, I'll be talking online at the Astrology curriculum on combining components in a chart for accurate predictions. So people are welcome to tune into that. Yeah, it's if you want connection details, just send me a quick email or a text. My email is crystal expectations, excuse me, Gary Gomes G at gmail.com. The crystal expectations email still works, and the NEIVAS.com at Comcast.net email is still a good way to reach me. I just think the Gary, GaryGomesG at gmail.com is easier to remember. Also, you can text me at 508-525-0001. I am taking on students. I am preparing to open a school. I know I've been saying that for quite a while now, but that is really more of a likelihood than ever. I'm also currently an instructor at the American College of Vedic Astrology and Kepler College, and also Daira Academy. So you can take, there are a variety of options and a variety of modalities in which you can learn with me. The models at different at the different institutions differ. It depends on what your learning style is like. But I'm hoping to be able to finally open a multinational school sometime in 2022. So hopefully that'll come together. Also, we do have plans for a music channel, and the exact form of that, like as I said before, I'm not sure what I'm going to take, whether it will be music reviews or a demonstration of my rather dubious musical skills. I'm not sure, maybe a combination of both. But we'll see what develops. Now, the major thing, let me get out of this page, I'm so sorry. The major thing I want to talk about today, though, is the dark color. So there are two reasons for this. Number one, this is the time of the year in which the sun is pretty much at its weakest. So we've discussed this in previous videos, and the main idea of this is the sun has fallen in Libra, and the sun's at right now. Let me see if I can share the screen with you. The sun is at 20 degrees, 18 minutes of Libra, in conjunction with Mars, which is 10 degrees away, but it's still considered what's called combustion range. So our tempers probably haven't been the best lately, at least for people with Libra suns. For people with Taurus rising signs or Taurus suns, it's been absolutely fantastic because they can get a lot done with this combination. And I'll explain why that is when I go to the individual signs. But there are also certain things that happen at certain times of the year. So Mercury is exalted pretty much around September when kids go back to school, at least in the West. Venus is exalted close to St. Valentine's Day in the West, in the middle of the winter. Saturn is exalted every 28 to 31 years or so in Libra, and that's the sign of partnerships. And Sun is debilitated again roughly every 30 years or so when it's in Aries, and Saturn is heading towards its debilitation in Aries right now, but it's very strong because it's in its own sign right now. And the moon is exalted in Taurus. That happens once a month. It's debilitated in Scorpio. That's where it is right now. But basically, we're looking at a very weak sun and a very weak moon right now. Does that mean they're inactive? Not necessarily. I mean, one of the things to keep in mind, a weak sun allows you to get out of the way and let other people lead. But it is bad for leaderships of countries. It is usually bad for people who have like fairly strong egos, for people who are, let's say, Leo suns, or especially Aries suns still have a lot of doubts, a lot of insecurities about relationships. But the other thing I want to touch on is there's a really simple principle, and I mentioned this, I think, in the very first lecture I did on Vedic astrology online. There's this really, really important factor in Vedic astrology called planetary maturity. And essentially, and it's really one of the best shortcut methods I've ever seen for analyzing charts. So I can look at a chart and say, around the age of 15, you were either associated with like great friends or had a lot of power or a lot of drive, and 15 to 16, or you were isolated and lonely and you didn't have many friends. And I can tell this by where Jupiter is located in the chart. So that's not going to change, even if I don't know your exact time of birth. Jupiter's going to be in a certain sign. If it's in a bad sign, you'll associate. Jupiter's a sign in which we form our teachers, but also our guiding principles for life. So we may have, and it's also, Jupiter also likes groups. It's the time in life at which we most identify with our peers, and we form most of our peer affiliations. So if Jupiter is strong, we'll either develop like really, really good internal ethical principles. If it's a little bit weak, we'll have a tendency to draw in what I would call bad friends, or friends who really hurt us more than help us. There are other factors, of course, but Jupiter's strength is one factor. The next planetary maturity is the sun. If the sun's weak, you'll have a lack of confidence, or look for the approval of others a great deal. So a lot of people who have Sun in Libra will become actors or actresses, mainly because they want to have some kind of external approval for what they're doing. It doesn't make them bad people. It just means they need to be checking with other people all the time as to whether or not they're doing the right thing. If they have a strong sun, they're going to be confident, secure, like really gang ho to be an adult and get out in that career world and make an impact. So people with strong suns are blessed from that perspective. People with weak suns will tend to be a little bit more introverted. And that year may be the year in which their confidence soared or it plummeted. Okay. around the age of 23, the moon hits maturity. If your moon is well placed in your chart, it'll give you confidence, may give you a good public image, may give you a lot of support or help from your family. If it's weak, you may find difficulty interacting with females, interacting with your mother. There are a lot of disagreements about family relationships when the moon hits 23. And so a good moon person's happy in life. They're content in life. They know how to please people. If the moon is weak, they need to be pleased themselves. They're always kind of irritated with the world around them. Venus, the same, similar. Venus matures about 1 year later, and oftentimes Venus is one of our indicators of relationships. And if Venus is weak or afflicted in some way, then relationships will tend to be less fulfilling. The person may crave a relationship or be cut off from one, or they may find a lot of self-satisfaction being alone. If Venus is strong, they have good social skills, they're very charming, they're very beautiful, they have a lot of romantic opportunities, they have a lot of business opportunities, and they may actually be able to enjoy life and relax a little bit. The next planetary maturity is Mars, and Mars is one of the most important maturities because of what it does to people. Mars, if it's well placed in the chart, the person's confident, they're ready to make an impression on the business world or in whatever field they're in. But if it's afflicted, I've often seen people have either accidental deaths or because Mars acts quickly. Mars is the fastest acting planet, as I've told many people. And also, they may have any relationship problems they have because there's a condition called Mars affliction in a Vedic chart. They'll have problems with relationship life. They'll have like severe problems or feel very isolated in relationship life. Also, it's a time when people feel the urge to buy property because Mars is the indicator for property. And you'll also see them becoming more serious about career, more serious about the impact they'll make on the world. Mercury hits maturity around the age of 32 to 33. Mercury is more of an expansion of social friendships. So people will want to get together with more people. They'll want to expand their social group. They'll want to do a lot of things connected with travel, short trips in particular. And they'll also want to make some kind of, this is really the career indicator planet because Mercury is the primary career indicator planet in Brihaparashara or Shastra. There are certain books in Vedic astrology which give like around 4 or 5 career indicator planets for as the planets you look to for career. Mercury is the most telling though because essentially it's communications, it's commerce, it's how we express ourselves. So oftentimes people with strong Mercuries will peak around the age of 33, and around the age of 34, Saturn matures. Between 34 and 36, roughly, Saturn matures. And that's when a lot of the hard work and the position of authority comes in. So the person feels pretty, if Mercury's weak around the age of 32, 33, they'll still be wondering what they want to do with their life. They'll try to make a career change or a career readjustment. But if that's secure around the age of 34, they'll find themselves moving to the capacity of boss, settling down. A lot of people will marry around the age of 24, 25, but people will settle down around the age of 34, 35. That's really when they start to feel the weight of Saturn. That's when your bones start to ache a little bit. And when you start to feel a little bit, you start to feel your age a little bit. Okay. Around the age of roughly 42 to 47, you hit Rahu maturity. And Rahu maturity is sort of interesting because all the things you wanted in your life that you feel you didn't have will hit when Rahu matures. And I think that's particularly important because it helps explain midlife crisis a great deal. And K2 essentially matures between 47 and 54. And those are the things you want to complete and you want to get out of your system when K2 matures. So I think understanding these maturities helps a great deal in understanding your own chart. You can look at your own life and think about those dates, 15 to 16, 20 to 21, roughly 23 to 24, 24 to 25, and 27 to 28. For a lot of relationships break up around that age, and also around between 33 and 35. And also between 42 and 54. That's like a large reevaluation. So the person tries to get into all the things they didn't have. It doesn't mean these events stop happening later in life, but that's when the planets actually mature fully in your chart. That's when you're a quote unquote full manifestation of the potential in your chart. It doesn't mean you can't start your own business like Colonel Sanders did after he was hired. That's more dependent on the major planetary period you're in and factors connected in your chart. But a lot of these factors you can do like a spot analysis on a person just by looking at those planetary maturities. It's really quite a powerful technique. So we're going to look at the chart for now. I spent about 20 minutes on that. Please like, subscribe, and pass along this broadcast to people who you think might even be marginally interested. And there's a lot more you can do those planetary maturities once you know what you're doing with Vedic astrology. So it's really even more, it's an even more powerful indicator than you realize. So certain major planetary periods will carry the energy of that. So let's say if you have a major planetary period that coincides with a maturity, that's really powerful. All right, so let's go over here. Let's look at the chart for this week. So we have Venus in the first house at the time that I'm talking with you. So that explains why I'm looking at, I would say, reconstruction is a new moon. It's a time for, or it's close to a new moon. It was a holiday earlier this week in India called Diwali, which is really lighting a candle lighting ceremony to dispel the darkness that happens when the sun is debilitated. But it also indicates it's also a time to ask for prosperity, perhaps because we're heading towards Venus's exaltation, and also for more confidence in facing the world because the sun itself the light of the sun is weak. So, and interestingly enough, it happened close to an aurora last weekend, and is happening close to a moon K2 conjunction. So moon K2 conjunctions are kind of fascinating because they can give an unusual sense of detachment to people. Moon is debilitated in this sign. There's worry about change of career or loss of career, at least from the sign. and also loss of luck. But this is only a temporary situation. The moon will move into the next sign tomorrow, and it'll be in conjunction with Venus, which is a very happy time for most people. And as we said before, Jupiter's debilitated, and the sun's debilitated, and the moon's debilitated while I'm giving this broadcast. Wow! So we have Jupiter very weak at 28 degrees. It's between signs. It won't cross over into Aquarius until around November 17th. And moon is debilitated in the chart, so that tends to make us a little bit critical of the people around us, critical of families, critical of parents. And sun's weak, so our confidence is a little bit afflicted. Now, that, again, like I said, it depends on individual charts, so don't get worried and don't get defensive. I found myself to be a little bit more edgy than normal over the past week or so, and that's probably because these planets are affecting a lot of personal houses in my chart. But for those of you who are lucky enough not to have that combination, it'll actually destroy some enemies for you. It'll actually make you more optimistic. But this Moon K2 conjunction is a little bit rough because, especially last night, it would have made people feel a little bit forlorn or uneasy or a little bit unhappy. The other thing to keep in mind during this particular broadcast is we're facing an eclipse around the 20th. And these particular eclipses, so the sun will be pretty much right on top of K2, and the moon will be right on top of Rahu. So this eclipse will happen in Scorpio, and I've spoken about this before. So there'll be a lot of personal transformation with this eclipse. That's one of the psychological upsides that we see to eclipses. And a lot of people, especially if things aren't suitable for them, they'll be throwing them out. They'll just be saying, I don't want to do this anymore, or I don't want to be involved with this person anymore. It'll be kind of wrenching between the 20th and the 4th, especially for certain relationships. Not all relationships, but certain relationships. And also, now again, that doesn't mean people have to break up that, but again, the element of if somebody's been doing something that's really irritated you for a while, this will be the time it'll come out. Okay. And it may even reveal some hidden secrets that people have been keeping from you, basically because they either don't want to upset you, or they've been doing something behind your back that you're not aware of. So a lot of it, since Scorpio has to do with land and money, a lot of it may have to do with that. Taurus definitely has to do with money and possessions, and that'll also make it difficult for people who have these signs prominent. But it'll also affect other signs. And again, it isn't always negative. Sometimes people come through this experience and they'll feel reborn. They'll feel like really rejuvenated, especially after December 4th. Okay, so essentially, emotional storm. It'll be kind of an emotional storm, and we're going through like a mini preview of that right now. So a lot of things we're impatient about, a lot of things we have ambition for, that's where we're feeling those right now. And there are invisible blocks to our happiness. That's what kind of shows from this chart. But also, Venus is in the first house, and Venus is in Mula Nakshatra, which shows a willingness to transform, a willingness to change, to do whatever it takes to make us happy. Jupiter's in Dhanishta Nakshatra, which is also, again, connected with an element of change, or with growth, or with announcements. So I made an announcement today. Saturn is in Vishnu's nakshatra Shravana, which is good for preserving the order, though. So we'll have a lot of, but we will have a lot of pressure to make the order change. Mars is in, I have to make sure Mars is in Swati nakshatra. Swati is a nakshatra which moves things quickly. So people with planets in Libra will be more oriented towards moving. They're not quite confident enough yet to move. They'll come within about 3 or 4 days. And Mercury's in Swati too. So there's a tendency for people who have in relationships, especially, to withhold truth or withhold information, or to out and out lie, to be quite honest with you. So as Saturn is aspecting Mars, so everybody's waiting for the right moment to move. So I'm not forecasting a large collapse in relationships or agreements with people. That's not what this is about. These are pressures that we sort of feel at this particular time. So this is the time, if you felt a little bit put upon or unhappy or displeased over the next couple of weeks, or if you feel very ambitious over the next couple of weeks, is the time to do something about it. Especially, I'd probably wait until November 17th when Jupiter's in Aquarius, but you should start planning now, because you'll have several windows of opportunity towards the end of the month, excuse me. And the other thing is, so let's look at this in terms of the world map. So Venus is in Sagittarius. There is a willingness to try new things, try to disrupt the old order. Jupiter's weak. Tradition is very strong from this combination. Shravana wants to keep the existing order no matter what. So Vishnu preserves things. But there is a tendency for Mars and Mercury to want to change things, or to rewrite the script, basically. Sun is debilitated, so like I said, confidence levels are low. They'll probably be low for about another 2 weeks. Then all of a sudden, people will get very angry, very sharp in early around mid-November. So I'm looking forward to this. It's sort of like being a combination of hard work leading up to breakthroughs in a lot of cultures around the world, starting around November 17th and continuing really until around, I would say around late March, late April. So you'll see a transition of Saturn into Aquarius. You'll see a transition of Rahu into Aries. So a lot of the planets that were more conservative, more fundamentalists will have, or they've been biding their time. You'll see some breakthroughs. Mars will also be transiting over these signs, so you'll see Mars by that time, by around mid-March, transiting over the first house in the United States. And I would expect to see some violence around that time in the United States. So let's look at the world map, though. But in terms of foreign relationships, nobody's friendly with each other anymore. At least that's what it looks like. So people are lying about what they'll do, and lying about what they'll what they know, lying about who they're being honest about, who they're aligning with. So it's kind of a precarious time. A lot of the truth will come out within about 20 days. You'll start to see that starting to pop out. But this is essentially what I would call a CYA configuration. People aren't they're not showing their cards, not at all. So it's not necessarily bad, because combinations like this enable us to maintain a type of civility in day-to-day life. The places where the planets are more extroverted tend to, just trying to think of a good way to put it, you'll see a lot of acting out, whether it's positive or negative. And there's a tendency among certain age groups or political affiliations to see action as positive. Certain age groups or certain political persuasions will see it as being negative. So it's not. But things like oil prices, that's a Mars Saturn aspect kind of a thing. They're going to continue to go up for a couple of months and then start to calm down. And the other things, but inflation will probably continue for about another, oh gosh, at least another 6 months, if not longer, just because of Saturn's position in the chart. And I'm not saying that to be negative. I'm just saying that to be honest with you. But it'll also produce more growth over the next year. And workers will also assume more power over the next 4 years or so. So let's look at the time and space chart, the astrolocality chart, and see where planets are hitting. All right, so I'm just trying to be conscious of my time. Okay, so we're at 36 minutes. And so we have a Mars-Mercury conjunction close to the Hawaiian Islands. I would expect to see some oil disruptions or oil or problems domestically in Western Canada leading up to Alaska, and also in Hawaii. The other thing is we have Rahu passing over Northern California, Oregon, and close to Washington, but not quite in it. And looks like Utah, and I'm sorry, not Utah, Idaho, and Montana. And touching into Nevada. So San Francisco is going to get hit by a little bit of a panic, or the area around San Francisco, and so will the area around San Diego. Yeah. Also, this line runs up through the Midwest, so you'll see some increased anxiety and depression around this part of the country, around California, all the way through New Mexico, parts of Arizona, and all the way up to really North Dakota and into Canada. Venus is hitting up through Texas, Louisiana, going up to Indiana and Ohio, and into Michigan, and into Canada. So the Venus line is usually a good line, but Venus is in Sagittarius, it's in Mula Nakshatra, it's not really a very favorable nakshatra. So this means there'll be some disruptions and maybe even some attempts to seize back local control. It's interesting because Venus and Jupiter, you think these are the benefic planets, are going to be the most tolerant and the most easygoing. And that's not always the case. Jupiter can be extremely conservative, and so can Venus. Venus tends to side with upstarts, but it also likes a certain amount of order because it likes peace and it likes artistic creation. And those things can, can produce, I'm sorry, can produce um, in times of upheaval, but it's really, really rare. So you're going to see concerted efforts in Texas in particular to seize back control. Texas all through the Midwest. Mercury and Mars are kind of prominent in Florida, California, Washington, and I think this is interesting because this is the area where most politics is played in the country, and it's even being played in Florida and down in Cuba right now, and down in Western um, South America. So a lot of these areas, there'll be a lot of lying, conniving, wheeling and dealing, more so than normal. So essentially, if we get some kind of a package passed over the next couple of weeks, I'm not optimistic we're going to see that happen until sometime in late November, early December. But if we get something, there'll be a lot of what I would call misrepresentation of what we're getting. The sun is close to New England and is passing through Argentina, Bolivia, and Brazil. So this indicates government's weak. Jupiter and this particular placement indicates that the Brazilian government doesn't have a clue as to what it's doing. And the moon on the East Coast indicates some problems in the large cities. So they've been struggling mightily with COVID for the past couple of years, and this indicates that they're not going to really get any relief. Iceland has a Venus line going through it, which is okay, but again, Iceland's been really susceptible to volcanoes, so I'm not looking at that as a positive sign, but more flooding. And Cape Verde off the coast of Africa is being affected, and the Canary Islands are being affected as well by that Venus line. If we go down here, down to the UK and into northern Africa, through all the way down to South Africa, you'll see Mars and Mercury lines, and also through France, you'll see Mars and Mercury lines. So there's going to be a lot of dissatisfaction with the government. That even shows with the Sun line passing through here. And that Sun line is really hitting more Greece. It's a Sun-Saturn line hitting Greece, so that indicates a lot of trouble with the government. A lot of unresolved economic issues. And you'll see a moon line passing through Turkey. Now, Turkey's in a position where it's vulnerable to earthquakes, so there has to be a lot of extra caution here. But the Moon K2 conjunction really indicates more of after some progress being made last month, more of a financial downslide, maybe some water catastrophes in Turkey near Istanbul, but I'm hesitant to say earthquake. And it's not because I don't think one will hit Turkey eventually. It's really more a matter of time. But earthquakes were being predicted for California as early as the 1970s, and a significant one didn't hit until around the 1990s. So it's just a lot of these things tend to be a little bit the timing. Nobody really knows when these things are going to hit. Jupiter, but according to friends I have in Eastern Europe has been subject to a lot of earthquakes lately. over the past couple of years, and they're sort of like bound in with Turkey. So this part of the world is going to have some problems with the economy, some problems with land shifts, and probably some problems with revolutionaries or the Kurds in eastern Turkey. And Saudi Arabia looks like it's having some political problems as well. So there's a certain amount of rigidity in the government right now. Now it's a little bit, and Russia also, to be honest with you, Russia and Eastern Europe, bad for the economy. Now, India is being largely left alone. Iran is being largely left alone. There is some transformation there. I'm starting to make some medical progress in Iran. And in India, they are as well. And China has Mercury-Mars conjunction is also hitting over what we used to call Indochina or Vietnam, Cambodia, Myanmar, Thailand area. And so these places should be politically stable and going up into China as well. And finally, and Mercury-Mars, for some governmental scandals are indicated. And finally, we have Sun. So the government of China will have no control over the next few weeks. In Taiwan, there's there's a Jupiter line running close to it. So that's actually not bad. The Philippines and Australia, but Australia is continuing to get hit by unexpected illnesses, unexpected closures. Australia's been hit really hard over the past few months from these planetary lines, and there's no signs of that abating anytime soon, not really until next March. And there's a Venus line running through far eastern Russia, close to Japan, Venus moon line. So there's some anxiety over the economy in Japan, and some minor anxiety over the economy in New Zealand. So if I were to look for spots, I'd expect something difficult to happen. I look at Hawaii politically. I look at the United States politically. I look at England, France, Spain, Northern Africa, throughout most of Southern Africa, excuse me, and also in Western China and Vietnam, Cambodia, Thailand. The place where I expect some kind of physical danger would probably be South America, Western United States, especially California, Greece, Eastern Europe, to a lesser extent, Turkey, and certainly the area where Indochina and China meet. And also Madagascar and Somalia, excuse me. So that's it for the world. So let's see how it affects your astrological future. This will be fast because I ran a little bit over on my intro. Okay, so Aries, insecurity about relationships, worry that relationship partners keeping something from them. Also, business partnerships are a source of anxiety for this sign. Although luck is good, relationship luck is actually good for the sign this year, but it feels disruptive. Career life is actually good, but again, there's a certain amount of anxiety in terms of the person's perception of their life. But Taurus, good competitive spirit, relationship life, still not meeting the right boy or girl, or whichever gender you prefer. But competitiveness is very strong. Also luck, they'll seem to be very, very pleasing to the eye. They'll attract a lot of attention. And luck is very strong for Taurus this month. So financially, they'll make some improvements. For Gemini, very strong feeling of being in love, looking for ideal partnerships. But again, worry about love affairs and worry about people opposing them or opposing their will. Luck is actually pretty good for this sign, although children will have some problems with lying a little bit. And Jupiter and Saturn are in the 8th house, so this sign will seem very attractive as well. 10th house of career is pretty much solid in research. They'll have to pursue a lot of research activities. Cancer has that Jupiter-Saturn conjunction, and it's still this sign really won't feel that secure in relationships until around mid-November. Then they may get a little bit bored with relationships, to be honest. And the 4th house, a lot of concentration around home life, some problems with children, again, similar to Gemini. So children will seem to be moody or difficult to understand. And in terms of career, they'll feel very confident, very willing to take on the establishment in order to promote themselves. So this is basically a good chart. Rahu also gives them some fame or some career recognition. Leo is a little bit less confident that it'll achieve its goals. They'll pass within about 2 weeks or within about 10 days. And there's also a certain feeling of isolation or dissatisfaction in relationship life. That'll pass relatively soon, or relationship partners will be lying to them. That'll pass relatively soon, within about 3 weeks at the outside. Their personal happiness, they'll feel a little bit lonely, a little bit unhappy, but Venus in the 5th house, actually that's good. So they'll actually start to meet more people who they like. Jupiter and Saturn are in the 6th house, so they'll be in a very competitive environment until around November 17th. And Rahu in the 10th house, people will like them. They'll be recognizable. People will be happy to be around them. For Virgo, a lot of planets in the 2nd house, so good combinations for money coming in. But again, there's this worry that their desires are being ignored or being overlooked, which may be unrealistic, just given the circumstances they're in, but that's what they feel. Venus is in the 4th house, so emotionally they're trying to be kinder or nicer, and they're trying to change their perspective on the world. That'll succeed within about another week or so. Jupiter and Saturn are in the 5th house, so they're stuck with wanting to do the right thing relationship-wise and wanting something which is not really judged wise or acceptable. And Rahu 9th house, some difficulty with bosses or a change of bosses is indicated. So I've seen this combination before. This usually indicates a new boss. Libra, confidence levels are low, friendship levels are low, a lot of focus on relationship life and worry about relationship partners lying to them or cheating on them. Moon K2 in the 2nd house, so some anxiety about money. Venus is in the 3rd house, wanting to please people as opposed to themselves. And Jupiter and Saturn are in the 4th house, so very good for study, but not very good for personal happiness. Rahu's in the 8th. So again, it's a feeling that relationship partners are a little bit greedy or a little bit selfish. For Scorpio, Scorpio has Rahu in the 7th house, and with Rahu in the 7th, you have again some anxiety or some disturbance. You know, you're not sure you're with the right person. The relationship partner seems to be selfish or greedy, and but also the sign has a tendency towards illnesses, both major and minor, this month. So it's best to be good for your health. Venus is in the 2nd house, so that indicates a change both financially and attitudinally. So that's good. And Jupiter and Saturn are in the 3rd house, so there's some worry or anxiety about brothers or siblings, and that shows up very strongly for this sign. Rahu in the 7th, no other active planets, most of the activities happening between the 12th and the 3rd house. So it's mostly about expenses and about siblings. For Sagittarius, Sagittarius has Saturn in the 1st house, which makes it very strong, makes it very committed to its life work. Venus is in the 12th. More potential for sexual pleasure, to be honest with you, more potential for buying things to make you feel better, spending money that's gained as soon as it's gained. Moon and Ketu are in the 11th house, so not a lot of happiness with friendships. Some feeling that friends are lying to her. And also, from this chart, so we're talking about Sag. Also Capricorn. But Sag and Capricorn are going to share a lot of similar traits. In terms of career, though, the 5th house, Rahu, is going to bring a lot of good luck into Capricorn, and a lot of relationship possibilities start showing up if the person can just open their eyes to them. But they'll still tend to be hung up or depressed about lack of progress in a certain relationship. Aquarius has no planets in the 1st house. The 1st house lords in the 12th house. So money that's gained tends to get spent kind of quickly. However, there will be financial gains for this sign this month, and you'll start to see them showing up. Also, luck will improve both relationship-wise and career-wise. And if this sign has been thinking about making a change, either relationship-wise or career-wise, next month's a good time to do it. The other thing is, so makes this sign a little bit dissatisfied with home life or a little bit anxious about home life, but overall it's a good month for Aquarius. Pisces, Rahu's in the 3rd house, Ketu's in the 9th house, so some over criticism from bosses or colleagues. Colleagues seem to be sad or oppressive or a little bit dour, and the Jupiter-Saturn conjunction is good for financial gains. Venus actually gives the sign more career luck, more especially from hidden sources, and the Sun, Mars, and Mercury indicates that this sign is likely to get some financial windfalls, especially over the next couple of weeks. So I think that's about it for this week. I want to thank you for joining me. If you have questions about your chart, I do take readings. I can be texted at 508-525-0001. I have a Facebook page. I have a LinkedIn page. I have a oh my gosh, what's the other one? Instagram page. I couldn't think of it for a second. And I'm active on all those accounts, so please feel free to contact me. You can look me up pretty easily. Again, texting me at 508-525-0001 is the best and easiest way to get me. So again, thank you for joining me. I send my blessings to you. I hope you have a fantastic week. Again, Om Grini Surya Namaha is a good mantra for getting the blessings of the sun when the sun is weak. And be patient. Things will change. Things will shift a lot starting in around mid-November. Okay. Thanks a lot, folks, and namaste. Good luck. And let's say goodbye. And please remember to subscribe. Remember to like and remember to comment and share with your friends. Okay? Thank you. Bye all.